bunker is a nice little linchpin, but at the same time, it's equally important to see that, wow, that really bought a lot of time. Could Protoss have possibly busted this and made a push against the Terran main? Absolutely not. The instant that bunker went up, good signal to begin getting those more techie things, that barracks, or excuse me, that reactor, that stim. God, Silver's being so careful. I love that. And this is so important to just be nice and careful, because, I mean, you don't need to get in there and kill 10 probes. You just need to get in there, maybe kill 1 or 2, and then pull back without losing anything. It's free wins. It's free money. So, hey, look, now he's starting to have to pull back. Silver still rallying, right? Good mix of units. The Marauders, very good at killing these Stalkers. Hellions are a nice little reinforcement bit. This is just beautiful transitioning by Silver. And here, again, to Force Field, blocking the retreat. Super good job by HuK. So, okay. Ordinary spot, right? Ordinary, typical, nothing interesting going on right now. We see HuK. Yeah, he has 2 gates. He has a robotics facility. What has he seen? Well, he just knows that there's 2 barracks here. And, you know, how many times have you been in this situation where there's a huge attack, you've had even a contain, bunch of stuff blasting down your front door, and you kill it. What's your first instinct? You go, doing! I'm gonna go kill him now. He's fucked, right? You get all excited, and it's so awesome the way that Silver manages to hold this off. And I'm glad that Silver's managing to play this well against a player like HuK, because HuK is, like, phenomenal. I think he's, like, the #1 rated player on the US servers, or maybe even all the servers, period. That definitely was true at some point in time. Now, I want to point out another thing. Yeah, I know there's a command center here at this gold expansion. I'm aware of it, and it's going to feel like, oh, that's so lucky, but just ignore it for the time being. Similar to how, oh, this bunker was so lucky. It was a little bit of luck, but it wasn't a huge, drastic change to the gameplay. There's still other ways to influence in a similar fashion. So look, Silver just throws down some emergency bunkers, and he's just going to end up defending. Now, this is one thing that I might be a little critical of, that this factory may have gone for that tech lab a little bit too fast. But either way, Silver's managing to set up this bunker right away. He's doing a ton of damage. I'm always a little wary of putting Marines in my bunkers, because when it dies, they fall really fast. You put Marauders in the bunker, then when the bunker dies, the Marauders take a little longer to die. But, you know, even though one bunker died and another one's burning, that was an easy defense from Silver. Look at that. Very, very easy. I'll even rewind a little bit more. And you heard me say, reactor's good. It's never. You're not going to ever get to a point in StarCraft 2 where people are like, oh yeah, you can always tell a newbie by the fact that he builds a reactor. But the fact that he was able to buy the time for the reactor let him get all these Marines. Look at that. He has 6 Marines. Marines deal a lot of damage. In fact, the damage output of 2 Marines, which costs 100 minerals, is more than a Marauder against an armored unit. 2 Marines deal damage faster than a Marauder deals damage to an armored unit. So yeah, see? Look at how nicely this strategy ends up playing out for Silver. Hey, I managed to do a lot of damage and encourage a counterattack that I defended really well, and I got a command center out of it. If for some reason we're not playing on Kulas Ravine, if we're playing on Temple or Blistering Sands, I think would be an even better example, you have a command center at the end of all this, and your Protoss opponent doesn't. Now you can play passively. All that fancy shenanigans at the start of the game was just a way to get a really nice expansion up and potentially secure a win early on. Doesn't need to, but hey, pretty cool. And of course, anytime we see a strategy this sexy, we want to generalize it. If you put pressure on your opponent in some containy fashion and it dies, you need to expect a counterattack and be able to live against that. And in fact, you should do moves that's sort of like, oh, come on, I dare you to counterattack me. Like making those 2 bunkers, encouraging that. So you heard me say, ignore this command center for a little bit. Yes, that's because it really hasn't had anything mining from it for too long. Honestly, in this spot, again, if this were Lost Temple, or even if Terran decided to expand here, a little bit risky, but hey, if he decided to do that, it would be fine. It would be all gravy. And in the meantime, Silver here is doing a nice Marauder Marine tank mix. That's just solid ground army. Now, note the position that HuK was in after this battle. He had to get, or he was left with just about what I have highlighted here: an Immortal, a Sentry, 2 Zealots, and oh no, I saw a whole bunch of units when I was retreating. Doesn't look like HuK can safely expand, so now we see a robotics bay going down. This is one of these alleyways that you force your opponent down when you encourage this sort of, hey, come here, sort of counterattack. Because Terran, this army that Terran has right now is very, very scary for Protoss. So HuK really doing what I guess you call the correct move of getting these, Colossi out, but it's not ideal. What Protoss really wants is for that attack to have either been a success or to have thrown up an expansion a lot earlier. And I think that, maybe could have done it. But, note these destructible rocks. They're not even down. Haven't even been destroyed. Now HuK can finally begin whaling back on those. And already in a huge defensive position. So Silver advancing forth. Very cool move by HuK to just pop up here with his Xel Naga watchtower. Really, really like that. And this expansion, it still doesn't really have anything mining at it, right? It's just these 2 mules and like an SCV. There's the train. So of course, the reason I said ignore this orbital command, I'm kind of cheating in a sense because I knew. Sorry, let me just move my pillow over here so my carpal tunnel can be cured. So you heard me say, yeah, ignore that expansion. It's because I coincidentally knew that Silver wouldn't be transferring SCVs there for a long time. But in a normal game where you would go to a regular natural expansion and transfer SCVs right away, then yeah, we're going to end up in a spot where Terran is getting about the same amount of money. So definitely digging this. And now a lot of the stuff I've been saying is sort of theoretical. A lot of the stuff I've been saying is, oh yeah, if you contain and then you can prepare for a counterattack, then you get advantages such as an expansion. But let's just look at concretely how good this army mix is, right? We have a decent amount of Marauders, not a ton. Remember, Marines deal damage a little bit faster than the Marauders. So we have our damage dealers. We have our support units that are good at slowing stuff down. We have tanks, which are just amazing against everything. And we just have a dash of Hellions in there. Look, there's another Hellion. Very, very cool unit mix to just look at, right? This just looks scary. And what is so cool now, to me, about that composition is suddenly, how did the Terran get there? Well, he first did this push with Marauders and Marines, and then he got the Hellions, and then he did the add-on for the tank, and now he's getting tanks, Marines, Hellions, or excuse me, tanks, Marines, Marauders, and that mix looks really good. But what makes a good player good is the way that they get there, because anyone can throw down 1 barracks with a tech lab, 1 barracks with a reactor, and 1 factory with an add-on. Anybody can do that, but it's the way that Silver did it with that early pressure, especially getting some Hellions first, that really, really was good. Is that rally point screwed up, or is that Hellion just getting really bold? That is a bold Hellion. Well, his life was short and well lived. So either way, Silver doing some very smart moves, just sort of containing here at the front, right? He has control of this watchtower. Looks like he's just getting some more of the same. Looks like he's going to be planning on getting some more Marauders and some more Hellions in that mix as well. And yep, look at how nice this contain is, just sort of blasting. And now what we're going to see from HuK is a blunder with his Colossus. Getting a little creative with his Colossus. And that's the sort of thing that people will focus on a lot. Now see, this is pretty clever by HuK to get overbold with the Colossus and start looking around for stuff to pick off. Yeah, because I can hop back up on the cliff with one of my absolute favoritist animations in any game ever. And look at this. HuK, this is very smart unit movement. Going down here, pulling back. Suddenly, Terran is moved away. Wasn't that easy? Great way to break an entrenched position is just to attack somewhere else. Draw the units away. So, of course, another smart move by Silver. Sitting at a juicy spot up here. So here's the blunder. Not entirely sure why these Colossi are trying to make their way all the way into this base. But, there's the stim, and there's another stim, and here comes the rest of this, and this is stimming, and... yeah, okay, so that's... Let's get through it, let's get to it. Yeah, boom, done. But we're going to back up a little bit. And I want you to just realize how bad of a spot HuK was in long before those Colossi ever made their way to their death, right? Look at these 2 Colossi hanging up here. Oh, here's a pretty scary looking army by HuK. Oh, yeah, that's great. But Terran has an expansion, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unit producing structures. You're still at 3 as Protoss. You don't have an expansion. You're almost broke. Isn't it just brilliant now that Silver's just hanging back to defend? And I mean, really, he has a Reaper here that's going to be able to check up onto this high ground. You know, we saw the Reaper earlier, but didn't really do much with it. Yeah, look, going straight to this watchtower, sending some Reapers up here to just check up on this. Look at that. That's so great. For all this fancy attacking and aggression and expanding and back and forth at the start, what did Silver do? He says, well, I'm in a good spot. Time to sit. And it's just sitting and is using Reapers to scout. Oh, it's so smart. It's so smart when you see it at the time. And these, it's very subtle. At the time, you know, when you're watching these games, oh, look, there's a Reaper, okay, cool. And you sort of dash around and look, oh, yes, he's getting his upgrades. No upgrades, that disappoints me because I love upgrades, they're so sweet. But just overall, the decision-making and the smooth transitioning is just flawless by Silver, which is very impressive for a player that, like, absolutely no one had heard of, and a player who'd torn through so many good players already in this tournament. Again, trying to be spoiler-free. So even without that blunder, what really is HuK going to do? HuK has this small paltry force. He's trying to get up here to this Xel Naga watchtower again, another sweet spot on the map. You don't have to have tanks to know that this is awesome. Just having this high ground advantage is great. Here comes another Colossus. Be careful, little Colossus. So what is HuK going to try to do? He's going to try to do a push, try to do a little bit of damage. And what I love about this mix from Silver, yet another thing I love, people tend to look at this counter list, like in particular Vikings and Colossi, which if I believe, let me just go to the Protoss units and click on the Colossus over here. Yeah, look, weak against Viking. Yeah, look at it, even says so. Oh, cool, I can cycle through. Let's see if I ever eventually get back to the Colossus. No, apparently I'm in a Terran infinite loop. Oh, not the tech tree, but I mean, you know, it's kind of funny people like to tease this idea of, oh yeah, Blizzard says that, oh, this is the counter, obviously. But even players who don't look at those sort of things, and players who consider themselves connoisseurs of RTS games, you know, the people who've played Brood War for years, or even Warcraft 3 or Command & Conquer Supreme Commander, they go, oh, counter is what a... They try to be a little bit careful about it. But people know, for instance, that Vikings are good against Colossi, so when they see a Colossus, often people go way overboard on the Vikings. You'll see them get like 8 Vikings when the opponent has like 2 Colossi. You might need 2 or 3 Vikings to bolster your medic marine force, but there's no reason to devote so many resources to that many Vikings. So that way you can kill the Colossus and be like, yeah! And then you have these Vikings that land and get torn apart by all the Protoss Gateway units. It's not good. We don't want that. So I love the fact that just one starport with a tech lab. That way he can get a Raven, doesn't necessarily have to. But he's just going to play a little bit defensively, and continue to construct this very, very solid ground army. And hey, look, now we're starting to get more Hellions in that mix. Cool, this is just a very, very nice, solid unit composition. And it even has the availability to get a Raven, which means it's not stuck in mid-game mode for life. Sometimes people just go Marine, Tank, Medevac, and that's it. They're done once they can make those units. And even in the midst of doing all that damage, Silver still going to siege up by a sweet spot and slowly progress, just inch his way forward. This is such a key Reaper. Look how important this Reaper is, seeing so much. So what does Silver have to do? Well, nothing really. I mean, other than maybe scout these bottom left expos over here, just to make sure. But other than that, complete, slow, methodical. Seems like a giant contrast from the start, where he was being super aggressive, man. It was just to set himself up in a good spot. Now he's playing good, solid, smart Starcraft, relying on these siege tanks and their Crucio shock cannons. It's just cool to see. Being very, very careful. And this is a lot of the times what I am talking about when you hear me say nothing wrong with being passive. There's no reason to try to kill him as fast as possible when you have the advantage. Once you have a good advantage, let's just make sure we're still ahead. Okay, cool, Reaper scouting, scanning. Oh no, he doesn't have any expansions. And just chill, just hanging out, and here, the slow, methodical advance. Don't want to accidentally walk into a Colossus, don't want to accidentally walk into a Storm. No rush at all. Why rush when your opponent doesn't have an Expo up yet? Now, I do have to give HuK a little bit of slack, because this map's really hard to expand now in these spots, because, I mean, tank over here, see ya Expo, tank over here, see ya Expo. And you're kind of cornered, but Silver just got himself into such a marvelous situation here that it just makes me happy. Still producing out